What's happening, guys? Welcome to the Dynasty WarZone, streaming live on the Player Profiler YouTube channel. Tonight's show, we're going to be talking about Summer's Super Sizzlin Sells. Easy for me to say, and easy to say that my man Jerry, the co-host with the most, will not be here tonight, but I am not alone. You know, in the preseason, we get a lot of these young guys, these rookies. You've never really seen them on the field. Even us Dynasty degenerates, sometimes we look around and be like, who the fuck's that guy? And that's what you might be doing live here on YouTube as you look directly across from our producer. Now, he is normally producer Kevin. Today, he is show talent Kevin. Welcome to the show for the first time on the Player Profiler feed, producer Kevin, a.k.a. Kevin Smick. What's up, Mr. Smick?
What's going on, man? First off, it is an honor. Get the call up to the big leagues, like you said, called the reliever in. Shout out to Jerry. I'll try to live up to Jerry's expectations here, but honor to be on the show. Excited to talk some Dynasty Sells. Let's get it after it, man. Let's do it.
For sure. So this is kind of like your Justin Herbert moment. So Jerry, the incumbent, oh my God, what was that guy's name who got stabbed in the lung? Why am I drawing a blank? He played Tyrod Taylor.
Oh yeah,
I just had to keep talking long enough to workshop it. So Jerry is our normal Tyrod Taylor. Take that as a compliment or an insult. And then now you're Justin Herbert. Maybe Jerry needs to be scared.
I would say that's the case. Then Jerry's
beautiful. You got beautiful hair.
Thank you.
Jerry's in trouble. But no, Jerry's fine. Jerry had family stuff that he needed to address today. So just like Justin Herbert, you know, you never know when it's going to be your opportunity to shine, and that's what Kevin's going to do. We're going to be talking about Dynasty Sells, guys that either have some steam or you've heard a lot about this preseason, and now's a great opportunity to cash out because sometimes you can sell hype, and we're going to give you some guys tonight that you can sell hype on. Now, this is the Player Profiler feed. On Wednesday of last week, which ended up being a podcast on the Dynasty WarZone feed last Thursday, you and I did some summer storylines that people are overlooking. We talked about Dak and their offense. We talked about Cleveland, and we're going to do that again this week. We're going to do a bonus episode. We're going to do part 2 of that. So you and I are going to be hanging out a lot this week.
That's great. It was an awesome show last week. Everybody should check that out on the Dynasty WarZone YouTube. But yeah,
and
we
podcast.
And podcast network. And yeah, man, like I'm ready to talk about it again. But we have a great show here today too. So let's get after it.
Let's get after it indeed. Now, real quick, I will be hosting a new show in season. Longtime Warzone listeners will know a couple of years ago, I was real successful and did a prop podcast called the Propcast. Very original. But I'm going to be doing that this year for Player Profiler. It's going to be Friday nights. It's going to be late, and you're going to want to be watching live. Why? Because when you gamble, it's about getting the best of the number. And you're never going to get the best of the number, so you absolutely have to be dialed in, notifications turned on, Player Profiler. It'll be Friday night, 10, 11, when the lines are fresh because the sharps, the pros, they beat the shit out of those numbers really quick.
Oh, yeah.
And it gets a little bit up there. You a gambler? Now, for those that don't know, Kevin lives in like that Philadelphia. He's actually a New Jersey guy. We can't hate him for being from Philadelphia.
South Jersey specifically. Just wanted to throw that out there. Shout out South Jersey.
Shout out South Jersey. Now, you are an Eagles fan.
I am.
Now, do you gamble at all?
Very lightly. I mean, my gambling is fantasy football, honestly. Play some best ball. That's pretty much as far as it. My friends, degenerate gamblers, no doubt. I won't mention them on this podcast here, but yeah, absolutely. So a little bit, I dabble here and there. I do like some underdog props, though.
Look at you, professional segue. This is exactly where we're heading.
You like that?
Let's take a minute to talk about Underdog, and then we'll get into good people, bad tweets.
Let's take a moment to talk about Underdog Fantasy. Now, many of you have already signed up. Thousands have signed up from Player Profiler already over the years. Underdog has supported us since 2020. Much of what you see on Player Profiler is because of Underdog, because of their support. Get the Underdog app, plug in that promo code UNDERWORLD. I used to play Underdog just for the best ball drafts. I mean, the best ball drafts are amazing. These draft rooms fill so quickly, and you can win life-changing money. You want to take advantage of all the sleepers we talk about on this show? Well, what better place than in an Underdog draft room to do that? And I recommend taking your underdog play to the next level by diving into their NFL pick'ems. It's important to correlate those NFL pick'ems. You can pick both the quarterbacks and the wide receivers to exceed expectations. Correlate them, and you can 5x your payout. Bada bing, bada boom. Underdog Fantasy, the promo code is Underworld for an instant deposit match up to $100. Underdog is the truest friend of the Underworld.
Yeah, absolutely. Love Underdog. And those are the player props we're going to be kicking in the junk this year during the Juice podcast on Friday nights. Now, I don't like doing like huge 8-teamers or 8-player prop parlays. That's not really my jam. We will be talking about that in season. So first time for you, at least on the big show, you're doing good people, bad tweets. Are you ready?
I am. This is a good one too. So
this is a good one. No, it's not all fantasy football. Sometimes it's lifestyle advice.
Yes.
And I saw this one on Friday, and I commented on it, and it's Jay Glazer. Yes, that Jay Glazer of NFL on Fox fame. You know, he's done stuff with the UFC, but Jay Glazer, short, stocky guy, bald head, goatee. And Jay tweeted at Jay Glazer, by the way, and gate agent closed the door 1 minute before I got there. First time in 31 years I've missed a flight. Wow. It's the Charlotte airport is who he tagged. Wow, Charlotte airport just makes it hard on you. Now, I'm going to take this one first. Now, I'm going to be honest. Now, I've not probably flown as much as in my life as Mr. Glazer. But let me say this. When the airport says be there 2 hours before your flight, yes, I get that this was an early morning flight, Jay. I don't care. You know, because with airline travel, if you don't make that airplane, it's almost impossible. Forget if you're flying abroad. Like I'm going on vacation due to this, like, you know, family stuff in the summer. We don't do summer vacation. Just don't. We have other things going on. So we make Christmas vacation. You know, my son's out of school. We go on Christmas break. That's our big vacation. I'm not getting there late. I will sit in the terminal or the waiting area of the airport. I'm not missing a flight. So yes, the gate agent probably did you dirty, but don't be tagging airports because you were late. You should have been there at 4 a.m. 4 a.m. Kevin, where are you at on this tweet, man? Now, are you an early bird? Do you get there early, or are you just like a last minute? Hey, I've got pre-check. I've got pre-check, and I still get there super early.
Okay, so I'll start with this, and shout out to my dad. He basically travels for a living. He actually has flown over 1 million miles on what used to be Continental Airlines, which is now United. He flies for work. He's in the music industry, so that man has been on so many flights in his life. So I learned a lot from him. So there's an art to it. I would like to say that. There's definitely an art to this. First and foremost, there's no excuse for being late. It needs to be your number one priority at all costs. If you're traveling specifically on an airport, you have to prepare for the worst. This is unacceptable. Like you said, you shouldn't be tagging airports and stuff. I've flown out of Charlotte a few times. It's not that bad. Like, come on, man. Like,
it's a weird airport. I'll give him that. It's not a great hub. But again, you know, someone when I tweeted this out, they said, "Well, Charlotte's a shitty airport." I got news for you. They all suck.
Yeah.
You know, Indy's not bad. Where I live, I fly out of Indianapolis International. It's not a bad airport. But all of them are bad. And that's the whole thing. That's what I take into account is I assume they're going to screw up. I assume the worst and hope for the best. So I get there super early. I get a coffee. I sit down in the area and I board my flight. Jay, I understand this is the first flight you've missed, so you're probably normally a good traveler. But don't be blowing up the airport, even if the line was long and you should have been there like hours. Like you could have been there like 2 hours before. Could have had a Starbucks, a nice crescent roll, a sandwich. Those egg beaters. You ever had the egg beaters at Starbucks? Those are great.
Oh yeah, go to. Absolutely.
Perfect. So there you go. That is good people, bad tweets. It's not always fantasy football related. Jay, I can't believe it. And this is a perfect tie-in because Jay also has ties to the UFC.
You know how fucking stupid you have to be to even think something like that, let alone say it publicly and act like you're fucking serious.
Yeah. So there you go. That was good people, bad tweets brought to you by our friends at Underdog. So let's get into it. Let's get into the reason why everybody's here. Let's talk about Dynasty Sells. Now, every year in camp, we're coming off of the first full preseason of NFL action. Now, we're going to recap a little bit of that in the overtime. If you're listening to this via audio podcast, you'll have to go back to Player Profiler's YouTube channel. And some point during the week, you'll see a little 6 to 8 minute video, and we'll give you our elevator speech version of what we saw in NFL preseason week 1 from a dynasty standpoint. But this preseason action, camp action, what you see on Twitter, social media, it opens up a lot of sells. And that's why I called them Super Summer Sizzlin Sells. And I'm going to jump into mine first. All right, you good with that?
Go for it. Absolutely.
Normally I give, but I'm already on a roll.
Go for it.
And I want to talk about a guy that I love, but it's Calvin Ridley. He's in the thumbnail. If you're watching live on YouTube, he's got the flames around him. And I like Calvin Ridley, and I'm not like an ageist guy. Like, I'm like not going to denigrate a guy's value in Dynasty because he's whatever. But when I say that he's like less than a year younger than Tyreek Hill, that probably surprises some people. He's about 15, 16 months younger than Cooper Kupp, who's 30. When the season kicks off, he'll be 28 and 8 months. In and of itself, but that's past the age apex for a wide receiver. And he has not played an NFL game since October of 2021. So I see you shaking your head. It's
wild.
It's mind-blowing.
Crazy.
And I get that he's having a great camp. And he could very well have a very good 2023, but we're talking dynasty. And for me, he's going in an area. Now, in fairness, I want to give a shout out, and I want to disagree with Mike Clay. Mike Clay of ESPN, he does a lot of their dynasty content. I think Mike's a super sharp guy. Really do. I think Mike's a super sharp guy. Mike Clay, what I love about his rankings is when he does them, he puts their age at the start of the season in years and months right there. So it's a very handy resource to be able to say, hey, here's how old a guy is. So when the season starts, he'll be 28 and 8 months. And so I was like, well, while I'm here, I'm going to peruse and see where he has him. Now, he had Calvin Ridley at wide receiver 24 on his board, and I didn't love it. I'm going to be real honest. He was just behind Chris Godwin, who he's older than. He was one spot ahead of Terry McLaurin, who he's older than. And then he was fairly significantly ahead of some really younger guys that I really like for Dynasty, including Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers. And I was even a little taken back that he was ahead of Treylon Burks. Now, I'm not a Treylon Burks apologist. He's a quagmire. He's an enigma. He's a riddle. He's all of these things. I see some things and I'm like, he's not that guy. And then my buddy Ray Garvin will tweet something out on –
Love Ray.
Yeah, I love Ray. And then he'll tweet something out on Treylon Burks, and I'm like, but I don't know how you could possibly have Calvin Ridley for Dynasty. For redraft, I get it. He's in a contract year. We have our buddy Mike in the YouTube chat talking about he's still on a rookie contract. Think about that. You're 28.8, 28 years and 8 months old, and you're still on a rookie contract. As crazy as that is to say, and I like him, but from a dynasty standpoint, I would rather risk maybe not getting as good of a season out of a Terry McLaurin or even a Treylon Burks, because I think Treylon Burks is a year away from being a year away. But I'm willing to sacrifice those points, whatever that gap is, because I think, again, Calvin Ridley could have a great 2023, but then next year he'll be going into that, almost age 30 season. What are your thoughts on Calvin Ridley? Are you a buyer? Are you a seller? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What's up, Kev?
I agree. I don't know if this is the best comp, but because can we throw like oh man, so anyway, he's a sell for sure. Can we throw a Josh Gordon out at him? It's almost like
I think, well, first of all, the Podfather has also comped him to Josh Gordon.
Okay,
it's a different type of knucklehead,
right?
Josh Gordon was like that true self-destructive knucklehead.
Sure,
that guy that he couldn't beat those demons. Calvin Ridley was in a bad spot from like a mental health perspective, which I totally endorse.
Of course.
And I just mentioned I'm going to be hosting a podcast that involves gambling. But this is his last chance to get the big contract. So if you're a contender and you can sell some age fear, maybe he was on the back end of a roster of someone who's like in the middle or maybe not contending, I'm fine with it. I'm not giving up a first for him. I would love to give up like a younger guy that I don't believe in as much. Like I know our buddy Alan Seslowski from RotoWire and the Sonic Truth. He likes Jahan Dotson. I'm not sure. I know he had a great game this past weekend. So if you're looking to move a younger guy off of your roster, maybe a second, the ideal trade for me to get rid of Calvin Ridley would be 2 seconds. I'd love to give you my 24 contender second and then a 25 second. That would be perfect because seconds are much easier to get back than first. And again, this is something we're going to reiterate quite a bit throughout the season is that you don't want to be hoarding 20-24 first, but especially in Superflex and tight end premium, because you've got, 3 quarterbacks I can think of. You got, Bowers, the guy that the tight end from Georgia. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., and we've not even mentioned a running back yet. So 2024 first are going to be valuable. I'm not giving up a first if I'm buying. He's a sell for me. But who's a sell for you? Or
back to Ridley. He was wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5 in standard or PPR leagues when his last full season in 2020. So I think people are seeing that, and then they're like, obviously he gets straight to the Jaguars. It's like phenomenal offense. I think though
it's a good offense, good quarterback,
it's a great
good weapons around him. Not
but I think
a lot
the
of
thing
doubles.
is, I really, really like Christian Kirk. I think he is an absolute stud and is going undervalued in drafts right now. I think he is actually truthfully a buy. If we were talking about buys, I would say definitely Christian Kirk. And also I think Zay Jones, another underrated guy, was phenomenal last year. And I will say it actually looks like Zay Jones is even in 2 receiver sets, according to at least their first preseason game. And
Evan Ingram. The resurgence, and they re-signed Evan Ingram. He's off the franchise tag. I don't want to call it a long-term deal because the tight end contract's probably a couple of years, but I think there's a lot of target competition. There's no guarantee that he fires. What's he look like after 2 years? We saw Deshaun Watson, what he looked like after 2 years of not playing full speed NFL football. So it's not going to surprise me if he's in a similar boat. But who's your guy? Who's your first sell?
I love selling off of the hype. That's just my go-to move. If someone like sees highlights, and you'll kind of see that in my trend throughout the show, but if you see some highlights and you can send like people you're trying to trade with some clips and stuff. My first guy is DJ Moore.
Kevin, you do know there's a penalty for talking negatively about anyone in the Bears attached to Justin Fields. There's a lightning bolt that you're riding on the back of right now. I'm just going to warn you, be prepared.
I'm fully prepared for this. And just the thing is with DJ Moore, I'd argue Billy was a DJ Moore truther a couple years ago. So this is coming from a guy who was obsessed with DJ Moore. But truthfully, I think he is who he is. I mean, he's consistently been back-end wide receiver 2 for at least the last 3 seasons. He was wide receiver 23, 18, and 24, which is good, but I think you could sell him for wide receiver 1 values right now. You see the clip and what you can do, and like honestly, the difference for me is, you see him do that, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh!" I saw Roster Watch actually tweet out, said his ADP, at least in redraft, just rose a whole round by that one play in general. So I think you can go off of that one play, and everybody I'm sure has seen your take on Justin Fields, which was a phenomenal excerpt, I guess you could call it. I
said what I said.
Right, and I just think like he is who he is. Like I said, really. I'm so tired of hearing this, specifically as an Eagles fan, everybody comparing this to A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. You mentioned that as well. We don't need to go too far deep into that again, but just like it's lazy. It's young quarterback. It's a new receiver that everybody likes from a bad offense. And I think the passing part of Justin Fields is what is the difference here. And he's not Jalen Hurts. So to me, I'll let you go off of that, but I just think going off of the hype, I just think it's not that DJ Moore is bad. It's just that he's probably a back-end wide receiver 2 that you probably could sell a back-end wide receiver 1 values. Take it from there, man.
Well, first of all, good job for you. With about 40 minutes to prepare, you've understood the assignment. We are selling the Super Summer Sizzling value, and that's exactly what DJ Moore is. First of all, Here's a little tidbit for you. DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, same draft class.
Yep.
DJ Moore is 2 full years younger than Calvin Ridley. So that's like one of those, mind blowers for you. But I'm going to start off with a quote from a person much smarter than me, and it's Maya Angelou. When people show you who they are, believe them. DJ Moore, I'm throwing out his rookie year, and I'm throwing out last year. I'm not holding last year's 888 yards against him. But DJ Moore, 3 straight seasons, 86 receptions, 66 receptions, 93 receptions. So what is he? He's an 80 catch a season guy. Those 3 years, 1175, 1193, 1157, 444 touchdowns. So if you want a guy who's going to give you 80 receptions, 1,175 yards, and 4 touchdowns, cool.
Exactly.
Totally cool. That's going to be like wide receiver, depending on how the wide receiver stats rank out this year.
Sure.
It's going to give you probably a middle to back end wide receiver too. That's just what it is. And if you can sell this video from Saturday of this pass, and no offense to Justin Fields, I've kicked him plenty. I think he's going to be great for fantasy. We'll see how he does from a real football standpoint. He literally threw that ball 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage. DJ Moore picked it up off his shoe tops, beat 6 defenders, and down the sideline he went. That's great. Totally great. By the way, those fantasy points count. They don't count any more or less because it had a negative ADOT. That's
true.
That's what we're trying to sell here. This is a great sell window. What am I looking to get out of DJ Moore? Man, I would love to get like a Zay Flowers plus.
Oh, yeah.
No, Zay Flowers plus. Can I give you Zay Flowers? We just talked about the 24 class, especially Superflex tight end premium. Can I give you DJ Moore in my second? And can I get Zay Flowers in your first? Let's do that.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
you're not going to convince me that because you know what? I love what I've seen out of Lamar camp to date, and I am not worried about Odell Beckham Jr., and I'm not worried about Rashad Bateman. If we look back a year from now and you're getting like a Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce vibe from Flowers and Andrews, I'm going to be 0% surprised. Now, will they have the volume? Probably not. I don't think Lamar's ever going to go full Patrick Mahomes, but I've kind of deviated. I am 100% a sell on DJ Moore. Now, did I back you up well considering we're doing this on the fly?
Oh, yeah, for sure. That was phenomenal. Quick note, I'm trying to buy the Ravens offense. I'm loving that hype there. So
110%.
I'm
That's
trying
a little
to bet.
side note.
Yeah, I would love to throw some bets on them, like, Zay Flowers, Andrews. Anyway, continue.
You know what? We're doing this on the fly, but, and I talked about a gambling podcast. As soon as we get done with this, I'm going to pull up my BetMGM app, the one with the lion. I think Jamie Foxx is the sponsor, maybe Kevin Garnett, but they have a promo code Underworld. I don't know what you get. I just heard the Podfather talk about it the other day because, again, this is all on the fly. And I'm going to take a good look at Lamar Jackson's passing prop. Now, I don't like betting overs. It's hard to hit overs because when you take overs, you got to bake in the injury concerns, which Lamar Jackson has had 2 years in a row now. But I think this offense is going to be special. And when you have yak guys that can do yak things like a Zay Flowers and like a Mark Andrews and like an Isaiah Likely, and I've not even mentioned Odell Beckham Jr. and Rashad Bateman, if those guys can stay healthy and contribute, Lamar could do a lot of really, really good things. I'm going to let you go back to back. I'm going to let you go 2 out of 3, and then we're going to take a commercial break. So give us your second summer sizzling sell.
Well, I'm going off of like I said, there's a trend here. My guys for my sale is George Pickens. The thing is,
now this one right here, I think more so than DJ Moore, you're playing with fire.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And this was a tough. I kind of talked to you about this pre-show. This was a tough sell for me because I do like George, but another thing you mentioned is like there's a lot of things that can go south here.
The biggest thing that I think, and I love Deontay Johnson, but to keep the conversation going, and this is why I love Chris Godwin, and you're not hearing this anywhere else but this podcast. We forget that Chris Godwin and George Pickens, they roughly tore an ACL around the same time, which was late December, maybe it's even early January in the case of Pickens of 2021. They're now a full almost 19 months post-surgery on both these guys. So I'm going to let you continue talking about George Pickens. Just be very, very careful because guy going into year 2 post-ACL, I don't know that I want to fade, especially a young, hungry, interesting fella like George Pickens.
It's why it's spicy, because this is an offense everybody's targeting. Everybody's ready for the Kenny Pickett breakout. It's an interesting move for sure. So I just I'm looking at a tweet here. It says, "Don't let this George Pickens touchdown distract you from the fact that Deontay Johnson had a 43% target share on the Steelers' first drive of the preseason." That's Adam Koffler on Twitter. I think George Pickens makes all these crazy plays. And look, you can go through my phone here. This is a Twitter search right here. Look at all these highlights. There's this endless highlights of George Pickens. So talk about DJ Moore highlights. There's camp highlights. There's crazy catches. To me, I think George needs to put this in games. I think Pat Freiermuth is going to have a phenomenal season. I think he's going to get targeted a ton. Deontay Johnson, like I said, somehow just keeps continuously going on the radar. I just think this is a guy that you can just completely sell off of the hype. And trust me, he kind of looked like one of the most talented receivers in his class. You know, he fell due to character concern. He fell in the draft and wasn't one of the top ones. But, you know, Dynasty rookie drafts, people are drafting him because, you know, your Devy guys and all that stuff, they're really on him. So there's a lot of George Pickens truthers out there. The talent is unbelievable. To me, before he tries to put it all together, I think I would like to try to maybe sell almost at his peak. And I think now might be the peak. I actually sold him in the offseason. I got Jordan Addison in a trade. That was my deal, which I'm actually pretty happy with. But yeah, go from there for that.
Oh, listen, the one thing I don't like about George Pickens is like he literally catches the ball and falls down.
Not a yak guy.
And the listener who doesn't have like the benefit of actually hosting the podcast and having the computer directly right in front of you, you're like, did he really catch the ball and just fall down? Well, he had like 84 targets and he had 104 yards of yak. Like literally, he had like 2 yards of yak per catch.
That's
he literally,
hard to do.
and he's like over 6 feet tall, right? So if he literally gets tackled and just falls forward, that's literally his yak, was just his 6 foot body falling forward. Now, a couple of guys, you mentioned you moved him for Jordan Addison. Perfect. So I have the Player Profiler Dynasty rankings pulled up. So I'm going to give you, because they have Mr. Pickens at 25. So I'm going to give you the 3 in front of him and the 3 behind him, and you can say, would you rather?
Sure.
Jordan Addison, obviously, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, since you've already traded for him, you would rather have Jordan Addison.
Absolutely.
Treylon Burks or George Pickens?
I'll take Treylon Burks.
You know what? I agree with you, and I never in a million bajillion years thought I would say that until I just did. Michael Pittman or George Pickens?
I'm going to take Pickens. I'm not a Pittman guy.
Man, I'm going to go tie. You know, like when I was a younger man, I wrestled, and when you wrestled in between periods, you either took top position, bottom position, or neutral.
Sure.
And like if you win the coin flips, the first period you can defer. I am currently deferring. I am deferring on Michael Pittman versus George Pickens because they're close.
Yeah,
26 is his teammate, Deontay Johnson.
I mean, I'd rather have the wide receiver one of the team than the
Give
wide
me
receiver
the
two.
volume. Give me the guy who's gotten like 140 targets like 2 or 3 years in a row.
For sure.
Interesting one, because he also came out of a big SEC school, Jerry Jeudy.
I love Judy. I'm actually definitely taking Judy over this one.
You know what? We're going to disagree. I am going to take Pickens.
Okay.
I don't think Jerry Jeudy is that guy. I know he had the touchdown over the weekend. He could be, and this very well could be a more nuanced version of kind of what Pickens and Deontay Johnson have going, and Jeudy could get the volume, and Cortland Sutton could get the splash plays. Last guy, Jahan Dotson, or see, this one's tough. I see you shaking your head.
Yeah. If we're flipping them, I think George Pickens has more value. So I think you could get more if we're just talking trades. That's kind of subjective, but I'm taking an easy cop out here. But now I think I'll still lean Pickens on this one, though.
I'm going to take Pickens just because I get the better quarterback. I think
Jahan Dotson had just a little bit. He just had a lot of outlier stuff happen, like his he's just due for, I think, a little bit of a touchdown regression and a couple other things. But
I love this, how all these guys you kind of have, and I don't want to say they're the original because it's nowhere near original, but you kind of get a lot of these DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett type situations before Jackson Smith and Jigbo, come strolling into town. You have the smaller underneath guy who's going to get a ton of targets, and then you got the big body, banger on the outside that can go up and get it. And I don't know that George Pickens can be that, but that's perfect. A guy that I didn't mention was Quentin Johnston. If I can move Quentin Johnston and get George Pickens in anything, a ham sandwich, a pat on the back, anything, maybe they would buy me a world famous, in quotations, draft kit. Maybe they would do that. Maybe they would come up with a couple of bucks and I could get the world famous, in quotations, draft kit. Guys, let's hear a quick word from our friend, the Podfather.
Hey, it's the Podfather of great news. The 2023 draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why? Because it is the best resource for winning fantasy football championships that exists. There are rankings and cheat sheets for every format you can imagine. We have projections both at the team level and the player level. And wherever you are, you can click on a player, open them up, and see in-depth written analysis about what to expect in fantasy football from that player this year. And then you can click on the team and you can get even more in-depth analysis, all the drivers of fantasy production, both in a positive and negative direction for that team, including a signature trend. And the graphics are incredible. So these team insights, they give you the team level projections, the vacated targets, the vacated air yards, and that one dynamic for each team that you need to know when making decisions on draft day. And we added a bunch of features. Individual cheat sheets for Theo and Billy and Dario. So you could take your favorite analyst and download their personal draft cheat sheet. And then in the commissioners section, also brand new this year, Memphis Young lays out everything you need to know to manage a league, do's, don'ts, tips, and what the more innovative fantasy commissioners are doing this year. That's presented by Trophy Smack. The whole package is presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship, the FFPC, Ray Garvin, Derek Brown, the best minds in the industry contributing analysis. It's certainly not the most inexpensive draft kit on the market, but it is the best. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. Go get it.
As you know, I'm a huge fan of the draft kit. I wrote the commissioner section, and I'm going to be doing one last commissioner podcast called Kiss the Ring. We're going to be doing that a week from Monday, the 21st. Just really tips and tricks on ways to make your live draft better, because I love drafting. I love drafting online. I love the efficiency of it. It's great. But there's something about doing a live redraft league, even if you're a hardcore dynasty degenerate like us. There's something about getting your old college buddies back together, even high school buddies, your work league. There's no one you want to beat the shit out of more than like John in accounting, because everybody knows a John in accounting. I see your face. You're shaking your head, Kevin. You just want to smack him in the face.
Absolutely.
Every year.
My main home league, it's been like 10 plus years. Shout out Oakwood League. Finally won it for the first time 2 years ago. I got slack for I just could never come up with the title, and it's one of my best accomplishments in my life, honestly, by far. Like, it was just felt so right. Also, shout out to the Kiss the Ring podcast. I'm a commissioner of 4+ leagues, and it helps, man. So everybody check that out.
Yep, and everything that you need to commission leagues from Dynasty or whatever, it is in the draft kit, world famous, as you heard. So let me get into my second guy, and he was hot, but as I was putting this down, he got injured in the middle of last week. Now, nothing serious; he's going to be back, but it's Miles Sanders. Now, you may say, Memphis, weren't you saying buy Miles Sanders? You're right. I was buy Miles Sanders this time last year. What do I love? I love guys going into a contract year with something to prove on really good teams. And we talked about it in our pre-show that we're going to do for our patrons over at patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. We talked about DeAndre Swift is in that role this year. I love guys on good offenses in contract years, but that's not Miles Sanders anymore. Miles Sanders is on the Carolina Panthers. And the one thing I hate chasing in Dynasty, and it's outlier seasons. And Miles Sanders last year, he hit career highs in games played. He played in 15 games. He hit career highs in touchdowns. He had 11 and he hit a career high in rushing with 1,269 yards. And I'm not so sure about what the offense in Carolina is going to look like. Now, I know some people, and I don't agree with this, that they're kind of concerned about Chuba Hubbard, and that I don't get. I think Miles is clearly the man there, but one thing he doesn't get is he doesn't get that protection of a mobile quarterback. He doesn't get that Konami code, that RPO, that whatever you want to call it, that he was afforded last year. And he also doesn't have Shane Steichen. You know, ironically, Shane Steichen, the current head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, Frank Reich, former head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, and I've not been super impressed. I wasn't super impressed, and I just haven't been. And the only thing I could really bank on with a Miles Sanders this year is maybe the receptions go up, because, you know, Bryce Young, not super mobile. The Frank Reich offense does have a lot of passing in it. But did you see their offensive line? I'm not going to overreact too much to the preseason. Their offensive line looked terrible. So he lost Jalen Hurts. He lost Shane Steichen. He lost that awesome Philadelphia offensive line. I've got concerns. I'm selling Miles Sanders. I actually sold him this week. As in a league, I practice what I preach. If you listen to the Dynasty WarZone, I am actually implementing the tactics that I talk about. I'm getting into more wide receivers, and I sold for, I'm just going to consider a mid-second. I got a mid-second and Cortland Sutton for Miles Sanders.
Okay.
Now Cortland Sutton, as you know what? I got a little extra draft capital for this 21 draft class, or excuse me, this 24 draft class. I got a little wide receiver help. Again, a lot of my dynasty builds have been around the running back position. And I'm starting to diversify a little bit, because if Miles Sanders regresses at all, I'm not getting that 24-second for him at the end of the season. And I'm damn sure I'm not getting him and Cortland Sutton. So for me, easy to move off of Miles Sanders. Loved him last year. He got paid. I can see where the offense can work out, but at the end of the season, he's still going to be a 27-year-old on a middling offense. And they could bring in somebody, either a rookie or this huge upcoming free agent class. So I'm moving Miles Sanders. What are your thoughts on Sanders and the Carolina offense?
Yeah. So as an Eagles fan, Miles Sanders had an outlier year last year. I was kind of just surprised the whole year it was happening. Shout out Joanna. It is tough. It is tough out there. With Miles Sanders, man. So the main thing this offseason that they're basically going off of is he's going to get 50 receptions. He's going to get 50 receptions. They show them in the office and stuff. And hey, last time he played under Deuce Staley, who's their running back coach, he had 50 receptions, which only has happened in his rookie year. If he gets more receptions, of course, it's going to have a little bit better of a season. He's had 50, 28, 26, and 20 receptions throughout his 4-year career. I'm pretty sure we've all watched the Super Bowl. He actually kind of got benched in the Super Bowl. He almost fumbled one of the first couple plays. I think it was the second play. I think it was a loss and then a fumble. And he kind of got benched. And it was, to me, I've never actually thought Miles Sanders was good. I thought he was a major disappointment out of the draft class. He kind of he was behind Barkley. Then he had a really good season his senior year at Penn State. And then everybody's like, hey, this guy's almost just as good as Barkley. Pick him in the second round. Truthfully, I think he was kind of a disappointment. He just had an outlier season. He literally had 0 touchdowns 2 years ago. 0. And it was a big deal.
Is that good?
It's not what we want in fantasy. No, absolutely not. And he fell as a super big value last year. Everybody's like, he doesn't score touchdowns. This Jalen Hurts thing that scored touchdowns. Well, he ended up scoring 11 last year. But on this offense, I don't know if that's going to happen. It's kind of like
this offense may not score 11 touchdowns. Period.
It's rough.
It's not that bad, but it's going to be rough in Carolina, and you're not going to.
No.
Again, he's not good enough on his own to create the fantasy points we want. And I wasn't drafting him. I was drafting the spot last year, guys. I was acquiring his spot because I knew that playing alongside a Konami code quarterback like Jalen Hurts has always been good for running backs, whether they catch the ball or not. The Podfather calls it the Alfred Morris corollary.
Yeah.
And when he played alongside, Robert Griffin III. So I was buying the spot, I was buying the free agency, and now it's time to sell. That's how you do it in Dynasty, because especially with running backs, and you're going to hear this so much this season and off season as we change up the show. We are going to reformat the show a little bit in season to make it more enjoyable for you, the Dynasty gamer, because let's be honest, a lot of podcasts turn into glorified redraft podcasts in the season. It's just, and that's okay, but we're going to do stuff a little bit different here, and we're going to make it a must listen from a Dynasty gamer's perspective. By the way, shout out to Rubio and Joanna in the chat. Joanna, very, very loyal to all of the Player Profiler shows. I've heard her name so many times. She said, it's probably over for Trey Lance, huh? I just finished watching the game. You know, you're going to have to stick around, Joanna, and, you know, come back later in the week. I know you will. You're very loyal. It'll be in the overtime segment that Kevin and I break down. But, Kev, you have one more name, and you know what? Yours may be spicier than mine.
Oh, well, let's get into it. Mine is Travis Etienne.
So are we fading the Jags? Like I was moving Ridley, and you're moving Etienne.
I wouldn't say fading the Jags. I think I'm just fading these two guys from the Jags, honestly. I'm definitely not fading the Jags, honestly. I think Tank Bigsby, this maybe is a buy Tank Bigsby take. There's been a lot of hype behind Tank Bigsby, and I think like good hype. So is Travis Etienne probably the clear main back right now? Yes. But to me, basically, I think he's going to steal a lot of work. I think he's going to, apparently his hands are incredible. They're showing him catching footballs. Did you see that? He was like, already had like 3 footballs in his hand. He's catching like punts and stuff. It was crazy. Yeah. So I've kind of always thought Travis Etienne was a little overrated myself, truthfully, just coming out of college. He had a okay season last year. He was RB17 in PPR. 1,100 yards, 5 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns. I just think there are a lot of pieces here. I just don't know if I really think Tank Bigsby is going to be on the thing. Dwayne McFarland said on Twitter, it really seems to be like he's going to be more of a between the 20s guy, which to me is just looks like maybe Dearness Johnson and JaMychal Hasty might even be getting some goal line carries. Tank Bigsby, the third down running back. If you're only getting a guy who actually doesn't even catch passes either, I mean, he had 35 receptions last year, and if you're going to maybe have a guy come in to catch some more passes, if you're getting a guy that's between the 20s, that's not a guy I want. And, you know, he is a very highly, I'd say, touted guy in Dynasty. I mean, right now he's easily a top 10 running back. I just think if you could either get someone around that tier or even try to get a receiver for him. You know, we were talking a couple of weeks ago, trade all running backs in Dynasty. That's just my take. It's just more of a worry what's going around, the buzz, and yeah.
Well, I you know, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm stretching out. I'm getting ready for this one. Now, you referenced that tweet from Dwayne McFarland, and, you know, it says just one preseason game, but Travis Etienne gave way to Tank Bigsby on the first drive in short yardage and left the field for JaMychal Hasty on 3rd and long. Not ideal, y'all. Might just be a between the 20s back. Now, I said this exact same thing in May, and I got ripped to shreds when I said I would rather have Najee Harris over Travis Etienne. And this is probably the guy we should have ended the show with, but, you know, we're working on the fly here, so I kind of fumbled the bag. This should have been the main event. You know, I said it then. Anytime that you say something negative about a player, especially a polarizing player, a popular player like a Travis Etienne, it's considered, hey, I'm not hating. This was my fear. And this is what I said when I said what I said about him and Najee Harris. And yet here it is. I know it's one preseason game, but no one also mentioned that Trevor Lawrence checks down at a slower rate to the running backs than Lamar Jackson. That's true. You can look it up. It was one of my pinned tweets for a while. A guy named Pedro something or another. And I'll see if I can find it and brush this thing back up. It's not a great spot. And I'm looking to get out of there. It's, you know, Tank Bigsby, you know, I said it earlier in the show. People will tell you who they are. Believe them. You know, Doug Peterson committees backs. And all of a sudden we're committeeing backs and like we're shocked. You know, they drafted Tank Bigsby in the 3rd round, 25th pick of the 3rd round. Why? They wanted they had a role in mind for him. They brought in Dearness Johnson from Cleveland. Why? They had a role for him. They used Jermichael Hasty last year in the passing game. Why? Because they have a role for him. It doesn't mean Travis Etienne's bad in football. It doesn't mean that he can't be successful. It just means for what we do from a dynasty standpoint, it's a great opportunity to cash out because the great PlayerProfiler.com has him as their 8th ranked running back in a dynasty startup. Guys, I'm going to get Rachaad White plus. You know why? Because Rachaad White avoided the injury bug today. He just, you know, kind of got weird. But like guys like that, give me plenty of guys. I'll pull up the rankings right now. You know, you got Najee Harris, you got Tony Pollard, Rachaad White, Ramondre Stevenson, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift and Javonte Williams might be the cutoff, and I don't think I'm getting Nick Chubb. But I'm not a Ramondre Stevenson guy, but if I'm looking for the plus. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those type of guys plus something. Again, it's the same trade. You guys are going to hear me. I use this one a lot. I'll give you player X in my second for player Y in your first. I'm always going to try to move up into the first round. Always, always, always. And if I can get similar points scored this year and acquire better draft capital, I'm always going to make that move. So I love the Travis Etienne call. Were you shocked when I was actually glad that you did it? I didn't think about it. I'm glad you did it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just it's more like he's getting bumped up because the draft capital. He's just a really highly touted guy anyway. Plus the offense is just supposed to be very good. So it's just you would think like people are like that makes sense together.
Dude, you put him in Austin Eckler's role, smash.
Right.
You put him in what could be Devon Achane or Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson's role in Miami, smash. It's not about the talent. It's about the talent around him and the way that I've seen the team use him. So it's nothing against him personally. I just don't love the spot. Bad spot. Last year, loved Miles Sanders, good spot. I hate it for Travis Etienne. Bad spot. All right. I should have done that one last. That would have been a great way to bring home the show. But you know what? This is what happens. This is live podcast radio right here behind the scenes with my new and existing buddy, producer Kevin. Mine's not as popular. Mine's not going to be as polarizing now. And mine's but Darren Waller. Have you seen the Darren Waller highlights from camp? Man, he's just
yeah.
I mean, is the term mossing people? Remember, like, what was the segment with Michael Irvin? They used to do on Monday Night Football. They did this funky.
I'm thinking of Jacked Up, but it's not Jacked Up. It was just like
it was Jacked Up, and then the Randy Moss one was You Got Mossed.
Yeah, you got. Yeah, that's it.
And the dude Darren Waller is mossing people left, right, and center, killing it in camp. And maybe he's motivated. Maybe I'm missing the motivation that he's playing this preseason with, but. Here's the thing, opening weekend, that second weekend of September, guy's going to turn 31 years old, which in and of itself is not a death sentence for the tight end position. We continue to see Travis Kelce ball out. We saw Jason Witten play for a long time in Dallas. We saw Antonio Gates should be a first ballot Hall of Famer next year. Love Antonio Gates. But he's 31.
Stud.
Very much so. He played 15 games. Darren Waller played 15 games in 2019. And 2020, he played 15 or more. And then the last 2 years, 11 and 9. And he's looked great in camp. And I love Daniel Jones. So because you guys are the WarZone listeners, and I love you guys, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. We're going to give our league-winning quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight ends here at the Player Profiler Network. And I'm going to do it on behalf of the WarZone. Little spoiler alert, my quarterback's Danny Dimes. I think Danny Dimes is going to crush it. And where he's going in this is from a redraft standpoint, where he's going in redraft right now,
it's crazy.
Is criminal.
Crazy. It's
criminal. Where else can you get last year's QB8 at QB17 prices? What in the blue hell are we doing? And
he is my number one. So shout out Underdog. He is my number one quarterback by a landslide on Underdog.
I mean, he should be. when he's going at the QB 17 prices and he's played at the QB 8 overall level and he only threw 15 passing touchdowns,
Yeah.
he's got nowhere to go but up. And he's going 7 anyway. So I will explain that in the video when I do redraft league winners. Love Danny Dimes, and I love this offense. I think this entire offense is a buy on, but and I'm trying to do a good job of making sure that I'm telling you guys what to sell for or what I would be looking for. I am looking to get out of the Darren Waller business, and can I get in the Sam Laporta business? Has looked great in camp. Can I get in the Luke Musgrave business? Looks like a 3-down tight end in Green Bay. And then the plus. I'm always going to try to get the plus because we know outside of guys like George Kittle, and even he's hurt, right? George Kittle gets hurt from time to time, or by time to time, I mean every goddamn season.
Yeah.
And even Mark Andrews was down last year. It really feels like if you want, and at some point, it could be a Tom Brady situation where we keep saying at some point, and then eventually he's 47, but at some point, Travis Kelce's going to slow down and stop crushing everyone's soul every single year, except for the person that has them on their fantasy roster. But it's just so volatile. Get me into some of these younger guys. Can I work together a package? What can I do to get out of the Darren Waller business? Again, the videos look great. He's motivated, but I'm motivated to get rid of him. I wish we'd have ended on Travis Etienne, but here we are.
So with Waller, for me, the way I play Dynasty, specifically with the tight end, I will ride a guy out until the sunset. So I'm actually going to have to disagree with you on this one. I'm all in on Darren Waller this year. I know health is a concern, but that's kind of the part of the thing where you basically just try to.
The health is less of a concern if he wasn't 31.
For sure.
If he was 27 or even 28, like Evan Ingram last year, it's the 3 years, and maybe it's the seeing the 3 in his age as opposed to a 20-something. He's a 30-something.
Do you think the lack of miles, for lack of a better term, just because he kind of really didn't play until he was like 24 or 25? Like, really until 2019 was his first like full season. Like he kind of had. He battled.
Do you want to buy a 72 Chevy Nova if it's got low miles on it?
Maybe actually.
Yeah, Nova was a great car. We used to call it the no-go because there was nothing that would kill.
Just the way I look at tight ends in Dynasty, I'm more of an aggressive. This is just me personally. I'm more aggressive on just holding on to the guys I know who are going to be good. Rookie tight ends scare me. They take time to adapt to the league. And honestly, like I usually will buy them later personally. Let someone else draft them. They're almost a crapshoot. Whoever comes out, then I'll pay later once I know. Like, for example, now TJ Hawkinson, phenomenal. Like, I'm all in over that.
You're not worried? Have you heard the rumor that he's quietly holding in, that he wants his money? Is that he's concerned that his production may not be what it was last year because A, they brought in Jordan Addison.
Sure.
B, they have to pay Justin Jefferson. C, Kirk Cousins is a free agent at the end of the year. Are you a little concerned that TJ Hawkinson's, not that he's not going to play?
Yeah, because the thing is, like with all these holdouts, even with the running backs, it's almost just like it's almost not possible for them to really do it financially.
It's the hold in, and you don't necessarily help yourself by not being on the field. It was actually reported at least I saw it as we were recording the show, is that Jonathan Taylor is going to be reporting to camp this week.
Yep.
It's like I know it sucks for those guys. I don't want them to not get their money. I mean, I don't want someone showing up to my job being like, "Don't pay that son of a bitch. He doesn't deserve." I don't want that, and I'm not trying to do that to these guys. But I mean, the league's going to do what the league's going to do, and it's our job to react to it. But that's what we did tonight. We gave you some sells, and I really want to thank you, Kevin, for jumping on and saving the day. Now, you and I did a show last week. We talked about some storylines. Do you have a good time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This was phenomenal. Like I said, I do my best under pressure, so I'm glad to help our own podcast out. It's great to get on the other side of things. I had a blast. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Yeah, man.
Hey, well, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again on Thursday night, live on the Dynasty WarZone YouTube channel, not Player Profiler. The bonus shows are only found on our feed. our YouTube, our podcast feed. So if you're not subscribed to the Dynasty WarZone feeds, you're missing out because we're putting out a ton of content, and so are our buddies on the network. We've got a redraft show called the Fantasy Football Fellas. They're dropping a show once a week. We have our own rookie guy. I mean, everybody needs a rookie guy, right? We got Dallas. Dallas dropped a rookie show this week. We have another Dynasty themed show. That's the Dynasty War Games, our bonus show. 5 shows a week right now in season, and it's a great companion if you're already on Player Profiler. You can drop by. You can get the rookie-only content. You can get the Dynasty-only content, and it's a great companion piece if you're strictly a Dynasty gamer. Maybe that's why you tune in to the Player Profiler. You know, you want to get the Dynasty WarZone. You get the Sonic Truth. If you're looking for more Dynasty content, we have it over at the Dynasty WarZone. It's not just this show re-simulcast. So we're going to get out of here. You and I will be back. I am actually going to be recording. Make sure you stick around. Again, this is why you subscribe. I'm going to be doing, first time ever, doing a podcast with Jax Falcone of the Undrafted and the Undroppables.
Nice.
Now, this should be a really good podcast because I tend to zig where he zags, and my Dynasty philosophies and his aren't always the same, but those are usually the best conversations.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like a sore Peter, you can't beat it. So anyway, Kevin, thank you so much for stopping by and helping us out. If you want to help us out, you can check out patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. You get this show early and ad-free on Monday nights, along with the pre-show and along with the overtime. If you're looking for the audio version of the overtime, which me and Kev are getting ready to record, you can get all of that at patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. It's $5. We've got a group chat. We have leagues. A lot of good stuff, patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. But I'm done. Let's go do the overtime. Let's go talk Trey Lance and some other preseason week 1.
So thanks.
Hey, it's the Podfather. I have great news. The 2023 draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why?